This will be part 2 in the series, Can Understanding the Brain Make Us Better Learners? The answer will be yes. But first we're going to introduce 2 new concepts, and then we'll take a look at some common misconceptions that students suffer when they study. The first concept is called storage strength. And to understand storage strength, let's look at our brain up here. We've got the working memory system here. Whatever's in working memory has the potential to be stored in long-term memory by way of the hippocampal system and system consolidation. And hopefully we'll be making strong memory traces in the cortex. Well, storage strength is related to the strength of the memory trace in the cortical memory systems as a consequence of consolidation. And you'll recall, each time we go through system consolidation, we are strengthening those cortical synapses among those allocated neurons. So the stronger the synapse, the greater the storage strength. The other concept is retrieval strength, and this is a measure of the ease or speed with which information can be retrieved, and it's associated with how efficiently the working memory system can access information. So if we're studying, we might be quizzing ourselves, we have a question, how quickly and easily can we retrieve the answer to that question? So retrieval strength, we're going to associate it with the working memory system, and storage strength with the long-term memory system, cortical memory traces. Now there are 2 ways then to have high retrieval strength. One is that we can just be recently studying something, so it's loaded up into the working memory system, and even if we put our book down for a moment, we'll still have fast access to that information. We're going to call that the working memory boost. Recently activated information is easily retrieved. The second way is that we were very successful in consolidating the information. We've got strong cortical memory traces so that we can retrieve them quickly and easily. And so we can have high retrieval strength either because we were recently studying something or because we have learned it well. Now it's time to move on then to follow the time course of a study session and to see what are some of these common misconceptions that students have. We will follow the study session with 2 graphs, retrieval strength versus time and storage strength versus time. And again, retrieval strength associated with the working memory system, storage strength with the long-term memory system. So we pick up our books and we begin studying. Now, as we're studying, we will notice that we have high retrieval strength for the information. The question is, why do we have high retrieval strength? Is it because we have already made strong cortical memory traces for the information? But wait, we've only been studying 1 time and we haven't gone through any system consolidation. No, this high retrieval strength is because of the working memory boost. We've loaded the information up into the working memory system and we have quick and reliable access to the information during the study session. So high retrieval strength here is due to the working memory boost, not long-term memory. We have not increased storage strength very much during this first study session. So we need to be careful as learners. We need to know that understanding something is not the same as remembering. We might be understanding what we're studying, but that's not the same as remembering it later on. And also remembering it now is not the same as remembering it later. We can remember it now because of the working memory boost. We are likely not going to remember it later because we've only achieved low storage strength here. So we can summarize this point as misconception 1. We think we know it because we can easily retrieve the information during study sessions, and then we might stop studying too early because we think we know it. The reality is that easy retrieval is the working memory boost, not strong storage strength. Scientists think there's an important relation between storage strength and retrieval strength, and that is that storage strength determines the rate of loss of retrieval strength. If we have only low storage strength, we will have a quick forgetting process. We will lose retrieval strength quickly. And students underestimate how fast they will forget. And that's sort of surprising because we've all had the experience where we study the night before, we go to sleep, and then we fail to remember what it is we were studying. It really should be a common occurrence that we realize how fast we forget. But oftentimes we might know that we will forget, but we don't take measures to address that issue. Now let's look at misconception number 2. We think that long study sessions are good. And the reality is that biology puts limits on the value of continued study. So we will just show sort of what it is to study for a long time. We'll just extend our original study session. We'll be enjoying this high retrieval strength for the length of this study session. The problem is we're not going to be making the gains in storage strength that we might want. So the issue is that prolonged study sessions with high retrieval strength become less effective with time. There's little gain in storage strength. And the result of this is what is commonly heard from students when they say things like, I studied for 3 hours last night, but I didn't do well on the test. Well, the second and third hour might not really have been very useful. It was kind of a waste of time. So why don't long study sessions enhance long-term memory? Well, this goes back to the concept of synaptic saturation, in that when we undergo some learning event, we're going to be strengthening synapses among allocated neurons in the hippocampus. But these synapses cannot be strengthened with more study of the same information. So they may reach a plasticity limit. So you can keep studying the same information, but you've already strengthened these synapses. So that further study becomes less and less valuable, less and less effective. You have to have synapses that are capable of strengthening if you're going to be learning and later remembering that information. Of course, we saw that one of the functions of sleep is precisely to reset hippocampal synapses so the hippocampus is ready for learning the next day. And that includes learning the same information. These synapses must be reset, and in fact all the hippocampal synapses must be reset so that you can learn the same information again the next day in a second study session. So when we're studying for the first time, we might have the perception that we feel like we're learning the information, and maybe we want to extend our study session, but that's not a good move. Don't keep studying when your retrieval strength is already high. Now, you don't want to stop too early, but you don't want to extend it for long periods of time. You're going to reach a plasticity limit in the hippocampus. Rather, we want to create a delay. Go to sleep, for example. And that's when you want to pick up studying the next day. Now, it's true, we might feel like we forgot what we studied, but that's good, because now we know that the hippocampus is going to be ready to learn again. So we want to study when retrieval strength is low. So we can summarize misconception 2. We think that long study sessions are good. Reality is when retrieval strength is high and hippocampal synapses have reached a plasticity limit, further study becomes less valuable. We want to study when retrieval strength is low, which usually means create a delay. But oftentimes, lots of students in high school and in college, they burn the midnight oil. And that's a time-honored tradition, but it's a risky choice. After all, sleep is an important memory processing time of your life. And so if you deny yourself sleep, you're denying the system consolidation, which is going to strengthen cortical memory traces. So we want to get our sleep, and we want to budget our time so that we do shorter study sessions spaced out in time with sleep in between. Now, why does sleep enhance long-term memory? Well, we've seen this in earlier lessons. We undergo system consolidation. The hippocampal memory traces are fired up. They activate the cortical memory traces, and we strengthen cortical memory traces. And why, again, do we often forget what we studied the night before? Well, let's summarize some reasons. One, we've lost the working memory boost. So sleep is a very long delay. So we no longer have the information in our working memory system. 2, our cortical memory traces are still weak after only one study session. So we've studied once, slept once, we only have one system consolidation. Well, we still may be left with weak memory traces and so poor retrieval. And in addition, the hippocampal synapses were weakened during sleep, so we've got the resetting process during sleep. So all these forces can contribute to poor retrieval the next day. But hopefully system consolidation did strengthen the cortical memory traces a little bit. But here's the key idea then. Long-term memories are best created with repeated, spaced study. And now we'll be in a position to sort of understand why that is. So let's look at the big graph now. We're going to extend it over the course of several days. Retrieval strength up here and storage strength up here. And the idea is that increases in storage strength require multiple consolidation events, which must happen over time, with episodes of sleep intermixed. Spaced study sessions lower retrieval strength, but set up repeated opportunities for consolidation. So what we want to do over the course of our studies is build up that storage strength. And let's see how that buildup of storage strength is going to be affecting the retrieval strength. So again, let's go back to study session 1. We study, we have high retrieval strength. We don't want to stop too early. We don't want to think we know it, but we don't want to continue it too long either. So we study, we go to sleep. Now, we're going to get system consolidation and synapse resetting in the hippocampus. Next morning, we'll have low retrieval strength. But that's okay. And the reason we have fast forgetting here is because we only marginally increased storage strength. So we want to hit a second study session while retrieval strength is low. And when we do that, we will boost our retrieval strength. We'll be studying the material. And then we get to go to sleep again. We'll do system consolidation. That'll strengthen cortical memory traces, and we'll reset the hippocampus for new learning the next day. But notice, the drop in the retrieval strength didn't go down as much as it did after the first study session. In other words, we are retaining a higher level of retrieval strength after that second study session and system consolidation. And notice what scientists want to argue is this is because we have been successful in boosting our storage strength. So the higher storage strength means we're going to retain a higher level of retrieval strength. And as we study again, it's best to study when retrieval strength is low. Don't keep studying during this second study session. You want to space it out. Study when retrieval is low. We study again, boost the retrieval strength, and we go through another round of sleep, system consolidation, reset the hippocampal synapses. We boost our storage strength, and now we are enjoying relatively high levels of retrieval strength, even the next day. So notice then, when storage strength is high, it means slow forgetting, that we retain retrieval strength. And we will retain that retrieval strength even after sleep. And this is what it means then, that we've successfully created a long-term memory in our cerebral cortex. So just to recap then, in the beginning we had high retrieval strength here due to the working memory boost, not long-term memory, not the storage strength. At the end of this set of 3 study sessions with sleep, we have high retrieval strength, but that's because we have high storage strength. That's the system. That's the situation we want to be in. We want to have high retrieval strength as a result of high storage strength. By definition, cramming is a single study episode just prior to an assessment, and the low storage strength after cramming means a higher rate of forgetting. So cramming has marginal benefits. It does load stuff up into the working memory system, but because you're only achieving marginal gains in storage strength, you're going to have fast forgetting. So it might help you get through the quiz or the test, but down the road, you're not going to have access to that information. So why does spacing build the stronger memory traces? Well, we're setting up multiple rounds of consolidation, and the effects of consolidation can accumulate in the cerebral cortex. And we saw that in a picture like this. Each time we learn spaced out in time, then we can strengthen those synapses, and this is how long-term memories are made. Another way to look at that is with a graph like this. We have rate of forgetting versus storage strength. Here's that connection again. Rate of forgetting is just sort of like the rate of the loss of retrieval strength. And if we pile up our study sessions back to back, kind of creating one long study session or sort of a cramming session, we're not going to be increasing storage strength very much because we're not doing separate rounds of system consolidation. We still have the information loaded up in working memory here. So we're going to have high rates of forgetting. On the other hand, if we space out our study sessions, we can do system consolidation in between each study session. We will reset synapses for the next study session, and so we can keep building and building on the previous consolidation events. We can keep on growing those synapses in the cortex, so we have high storage strength, which means low rate of forgetting. And that's how you make lasting memories. You have to allow the brain to go through this biology, so we have to space out our study sessions. So we saw in the last lesson sort of when to study. Well, we want to study when the hippocampal teacher is prepared to learn, which means reduce synapse strength between hippocampal neurons. And this occurs after sleep, as we've seen. We have low retrieval strength or significant delays after the last study session. And one way to test whether it's an appropriate time to restudy is if retrieval strength is still high, then maybe increase the delay a bit. And if you keep making the delay bigger and bigger and you still have high retrieval strength, well then congratulations, you have successfully made long-term memories in your cortex. But generally, we want to study when the teacher is ready to learn. And that kind of follows, that tracks low retrieval strength. That's when we want to study. So even if we achieve high storage strength here and we are enjoying high retrieval strength over time, it is possible to forget information even if we have achieved high storage strength. So there are two ways to think about forgetting. One is that we just didn't do enough consolidation, insufficient consolidation. But another comes into play, and we're going to call that disuse. First, though, consolidation. Insufficient consolidation means like maybe we just studied once and we just didn't have a chance to strengthen those cortical memory traces. So you get some growth, but not a lot. And so down the road, we're gonna lose access to that information. So we'll think of that as forgetting as insufficient consolidation. And this will be the case where we just study once, we don't really boost our storage strength very much, and so we'll have fast forgetting. But there's another way to forget information. So we can lose retrieval strength even though we have built up high storage strength. And this is the concept of disuse. So we'll think of this as forgetting as a loss of access. And the idea is even strongly stored memories can be forgotten if they are not retrieved for a long time. With disuse, the retrieval systems can lose access to the memory traces. So we've strongly stored the information, but if we haven't practiced retrieving the information, we can lose access to that information. And we're going to call that disuse. And keep in mind, over time, the hippocampal memory traces would have decayed, although we have cortical memory traces that don't decay very fast. So they're there, but we have lost access because we haven't retrieved that information in a long time. Now, scientists think that the memory traces are still in the cortex because if we just go through a relearning period where we activate the cortex, we encode that same kind of information, make a hippocampal memory trace, go through some consolidation again, we will quickly increase retrieval to that lost information. So relearning can quickly reestablish retrieval pathways, and this shows that the memory traces were present, but that retrieval systems had lost access to them. So we must practice retrieval so that memory retrieval pathways are strengthened and retain easy access to the memory traces. Yes, it is important to set up these strong cortical memory traces, but if we want to keep access to them, we have to retrieve them every once in a while. Actively retrieving the memory for, say, some text you're reading triggers another round of consolidation. So let's take a look at our brain. We're reading some text, and the hippocampus is going to do some consolidation, and the font is increasing, representing we are strengthening the cortical memory traces for the information in the text. Whenever we actively retrieve that information, we set up another round of system consolidation, and we can build stronger cortical memory traces. The brain seems to operate on the principle information that it repeatedly encounters must be important, so store it well. But for this to happen, the memory retrieval system must be engaged. Evidently, simply rereading the text information does not produce the same gain in memory consolidation. The information is reprocessed and reorganized and recognized, but the effects on long-term memory are reduced. So rereading has been shown to be less effective. Just sort of the study condition versus the study retrieve condition. Rereading just doesn't have the effect on long-term memory that retrieval does. We'll call this misconception 3 then. Students may think that tests only measure prior learning, and the reality is that tests increase storage strength. So every time we quiz ourselves, every time we do retrieval practice, we are setting up another round of consolidation, and so we can build up stronger memory traces in our cerebral cortex. To wrap things up then, we can step back and just sort of take a look at how we sometimes approach learning. Students often think that learning is about getting the information into the brain. But this overlooks the main purpose of learning and memory, to get the information out of the brain again at a later time. And we want to do self-testing then to see if we can do that. So retrieval practice monitors forgetting. And this means that it calibrates our metacognition. When we do retrieval practice, after a delay, so we don't have the working memory boost, then we're going to get a good idea of what we know and what we don't know. Now, we can think of these misconceptions as sort of related to the concept of metacognition. First, students mistake retrieval strength for storage strength and stop studying. They think they know it and won't forget it. They think understanding in the moment is the same as remembering at a later time. And the reality is that retrieval strength can be high because of the working memory boost. Number two, students think that long study sessions are valuable. Reality, when retrieval is already high, it is difficult to make gains in storage strength. And we saw this was the result of sort of plasticity limits in the hippocampus. Number three, testing only measures prior learning. In reality, retrieval practice helps the brain increase storage strength. So we kind of have a metacognitive disconnect. We can believe that forgetting happens, yet we often behave as if it doesn't. So to summarize then, what's going on when we learn and remember and forget? And then we'll wrap it up with how should we study. Well, what happens when we study? We increase retrieval strength, and this is the working memory boost. But early on, we have not yet boosted storage strength very much. Now, if system consolidation is successful later on, we increase storage strength. But we need to do this repeatedly to really get the cortical memory traces strong. Why can we remember? We currently have retrieval strength due to recent study. We have high retrieval strength due to recent study, or we successfully increase storage strength so that we can retrieve at any time. So we've done perhaps multiple rounds of system consolidation, and we've got strong synapses in the cortical memory traces. Why do we forget? We didn't do enough system consolidation, for example, cramming, or we have lost retrieval strength because of disuse. So we've got to practice retrieving information if we want sustained and reliable access to that information. So how should we study? Well, repeated and spaced study sessions will maximize consolidation. And sleep promotes consolidation and prepares the brain for new learning. So we've got to allow our brain to do the biology, to do the growth that is accompanied with learning. We've got to do that synapse growth if we want to have a memory for the information. So we need to do study sessions repeatedly, and we've got to space them out so the hippocampus is ready to learn. We want to space it out so retrieval strength is low. And when we're doing our study, we want to use good techniques like retrieval practice and other deep processing strategies. So in the end, it is helpful to understand how the brain does the bit of learning and memory. What is learning? What is memory? And how is the brain processing information? And if we know something about the brain, then we can adjust our study strategies so that we can maximize our success.